All right, so thanks everybody for showing up here. And this is our first webinar with China Cash Buyers. My name is Paul Salo, and I appreciate you taking your time to show up. It's a blazing hot day here in Shanghai, so I've got myself holed up in the room here with the air conditioner on, so you might hear it in the background once in a while. I just want to give you a kind of a background so that you can kind of understand where we're coming from here. My background is I got to China. I came to China after finishing school. I finished school and I decided to take a trip around the world, and I passed up some job offers, and I ended up going to different countries, and I just kind of ended up in China almost by accident. Actually, I was over in Sweden, and they were offering I had a chance to buy the Trans-Siberian Railroad ticket, and so I decided to take that. I decided to come to China, and I had no idea what I was getting into, other than the fact that I had a high school buddy that was here. So when I got here to China, this is basically this picture you're looking at right here, 1989. I mean, this was China in 1989. There was no cars. There was just bicycles. There was a few. In Beijing, you would see maybe one or two or three a day. You'd see a government car come by, and they had a big, Chinese flag on it, or usually it was a German flag or an American flag. It was always a diplomat, and then there was a lot of buses. So there was Chinese buses. So that was basically what you had here. And the country was very, very poor. Meat was almost non-existent, and there was only one place in all of China that sold ice cream. So that was in Guangdong, and I actually went down there to the White Swan Hotel and had some ice cream, because we just thought, well, we gotta go, and we got to go check it out, right? So we went down there. We had our ice cream, but basically the place was very undeveloped, and China had just opened up from years and years of being closed, and 1978 officially was the time, but really land sales and investors and any kind of real business was not starting till after like 1990. So things changed very, very quickly, but this influences a lot the people that you're looking for to invest in real estate, because this is what they went through. This is their background. And very important to know where people come from. This tells you the heart of somebody when you know what they've been through, right? Okay, here we go. So here's Shanghai. That's Shanghai in 1990 above, and that's Shanghai about a year, 2 years ago. So there's actually that bottom picture there has actually changed a lot even since that picture. But you can just see the amazing amount of difference in the real estate market here, and along with this, these massive changes in modernization, the superlatives just never end in China. I mean, there's just been such a quick change. So many people have been raised out of poverty. That's one thing I just love about China, is that when I got here, there were so many people that just really didn't have much food. And now, you come around China and you see, people are doing well, and they're confident, and they feel hope for the future and optimism. And that's one of the big reasons why I moved here permanently 8 years ago. I've been in Asia since I got here, but I was in Japan, and I was here and back and forth. But I moved to Shanghai permanently 8.5 years ago, or 9 years ago, about that time. And so that's what's happened, and that's what Shanghai looks like now. A lot of people don't really know much about Shanghai. A lot of the investors, a lot of the big investors, are either coming from Shanghai or Beijing or the surrounding cities around these cities. These major, huge metropolises, they have outlying cities like Suzhou and Hangzhou. Beijing has Tianjin, and these cities have a very large percentage of millionaires, families with $150 million, and actually US dollar billionaires are quite common. I'm not sure the exact number of Shanghai right now, but there's a lot. There's a lot of people here that are billionaires. Okay, so I wanted to give you a background. Sometimes people will ask me, like, how did you get started why are you an expert? Like, how do you know about selling to Chinese? What gives you the right? What do you know? How did you learn this thing? And I wanted to tell you my real story is when I came to China, was it back in '89, like I said, and I had just finished school and I was traveling around the world, and I really didn't have, I was just, fresh college grad. I didn't have any debt, but I didn't have any money at all. And I had sold my car and started the trip. But along this trip, I had run out of money several times. So when I got to China, back then it was quite expensive, actually, surprisingly, because the foreigners, we had to use a special currency called foreign exchange, FEC basically, and we had to use FEC, which was a different currency than what the Chinese used. So we had to pay, like higher prices for everything. We had to stay in special hotels. We had to eat in special places, and so there was a lot of rules for foreigners. So I spent a lot of money when I was here, actually, and I ran out of money. So when I was back in '89, I ran out of money, and I just didn't want to go back home. I was enthralled with Asia. I just loved traveling, and I wanted to finish this trip. I'm just, I'm an independent guy. I just really wanted to finish this thing on my own. I didn't want to ask my family for any help. I didn't want to be dependent on anybody. So I said, I really want to earn some money here in China. I thought, how can I earn some money in China? So I tried different things, but there was just nothing. There was no visas for foreigners. And then finally I saw some people selling things on the street. And I thought, well, hey, maybe maybe I could sell something on the street, And I was real scared about it. But what happened was I ended up setting up a stall, completely illegal, and actually selling, like not this girl in the picture, she's selling jewelry here. This is actually a picture of Japan, but it gave you a good example of what I was doing. This is basically what I was doing, except I was doing much more basic than her. I didn't have lights, I didn't have a generator, I didn't have a stand. I bought some pictures from an artist that I met, and I just put them on the street and just simply just stood there and started to talk to Chinese people as they walked by. And people would ask me, whoa, people that could speak English, you're a foreigner, what are you doing here, And I said, these pictures are the best. And I started talking to them, and people were friendly. People started talking to me, and I started selling these pictures. And I would go out there every night, and I would put these pictures on the ground and start selling these pictures. And eventually, when I went back to I was living in a dormitory. Every night I would get home and I'd take the money because I didn't want anybody in my dormitory to steal it. So I'd just shove it into my locker. I just kind of shove it in there, and then I would close the door real quick. And then one day I was all alone at home, or in the dormitory, and so I thought, well, I better open up the locker and count how much money I have in here. And I opened the locker, and literally the locker was full of money. Like, it literally fell out. Like the cash just like fell out. And I was like, no way, I gotta leave. I gotta leave China. I gotta go. And I don't want to get robbed. So I had made a bunch of money selling in China, which was, as far as I know, that was very unique. I don't know anybody else who was doing that, but I learned a lot talking to people, and seeing their reactions and seeing what motivates people. Why do people do things? Why do Chinese people? How do they think about things when they're going to, buy something or invest in something? How do they think? And I learned a lot of the basics right there on the street, just selling. So this is me today. So it's been a long journey and a big change. This is an event we had here in Shanghai recently, where we were selling Australian properties, and we sold, actually that day we sold 4 properties right there on the spot in the room, signed the properties, and then we sold more properties afterwards. Some people visited and went to see the houses, and they eventually sold more houses from that event. So it's been a wild journey, and I wouldn't trade it for anything else in the world. But I still say that those lessons I learned, they all add up when you understand where people are coming from. You got to know where people are coming from to sell to them, right? And to really make friends and to improve your business. So that's what I want to do with this webinar. All right. So one thing I got some questions, and especially from Warren down in Melbourne. Thank you very much. And asking how to find Chinese clients. How and where can I find Chinese clients? And in Warren's case, because we talked a little bit by email, and is that he already has sold some real estate to Chinese and wants to sell more. So we didn't get any farther than that. So hopefully we will in the future. But going on that, I wanted to say, for you out there that have sold real estate to Chinese before, right, and you want to sell more, let's start with that situation. So you've sold some real estate. How do you either leverage those clients that you have, or find new clients? So first thing, if you have Chinese clients, or if you've ever had Chinese clients and you've kind of drifted away, so maybe you signed a contract, they bought a house, and then you didn't know what to do next. You didn't know how to take it to the next level. And this could actually work also if you have Chinese friends or if you know Chinese people. But the key thing with Chinese people is it's really very much a face-to-face culture. It's not. I mean, social media and everything. We'll talk about later in the product, but it's very, very powerful. And there's purpose. There's times that you would use that, but for most Chinese people, face-to-face contact is the number one thing. FaceTime, and that's one thing that I think a lot of agents, aren't used to, is building that relationship with the person. And I know a lot of people talk about relationships. They talk about the importance of relationships in Asian society. It's not just China. It's also in Japan and Korea, Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia. Not so much in the Philippines, but Indonesia. And that kind of the relationship building is important. But I think a lot of people don't really understand what does that mean. What does relationship mean, and how to build that, and what do you do in certain situations? Like, I mean, obviously you're busy, you don't have, you can't spend your whole life doing it. How do you manage it? How do you think about it? So let's go with the first example, is where you have a Chinese client, or you had one in the past, or maybe you have a very good Chinese friend, and you want to start focusing more on Chinese clients. You're like a lot of people that are interested in China cash buyers, is you see the future, and you see yourself in that. You see this massive wave, and you want to be part of it, right? It's not going to end tomorrow. The Chinese investors are just increasing all the time, and there'll be more and more, regardless of what happens in the world economy, regardless of what happens even in the Chinese economy. There's a lot of wealthy Chinese. They don't only have their money in China. Most wealthy Chinese have their money outside China, or a lot of their money. So even if there was a major shock in the Chinese economy, there's a lot of wealthy Chinese, and they're going to be buying more and more. So that's why people are interested. So if you find in that camp, okay, so what you do, first thing you want to do is you want to fix what you did wrong. You let this person drift away. You signed a contract and you really didn't know what to do next. What I would recommend is the first thing you want to do is you want to contact that person, okay, your ex-client, or it could be a friend, a Chinese friend, or it could be even, let's just say, let's take it a step farther, and let's say somebody you met in a restaurant that you actually got their phone number, or you met at a convention, and not necessarily someone that you're targeting to sell real estate to. It's somebody in the Chinese community that you felt affiliation for, a friendship, or an ex-client. Okay, so call that person up, email that person, and say, it's been a long time. I'm sorry that I let our relationship go to waste, or I didn't keep in touch. And if you have time, I'd love to get together. And set yourself up a meeting. Nothing too big, Not like you don't want to set up like some kind of Beijing duck dinner or some big fancy thing. You just want to, the key thing is face to face in this situation. You just want to meet them. It's you and them, and just to be able to talk. Could be in your office, could be in their office, could be in a Starbucks. It doesn't really matter. The location's not that important. So you want to meet face to face. And then when you meet, what you want to do is you want to basically, in the beginning, just talk about what they're doing, how they're settling in, how everything's going, or what their family's doing, or how their kids are doing in school, just normal stuff, right? And then this is where the skill comes in. The next thing you want to do is, a lot of Chinese culture is about face, and you hear about mianzi. It's I probably don't, that word you don't hear, but mianzi means like saving face or losing face, or the concept of face, right? And in this case, how the concept of face would be relevant is that you never want to make a Chinese person feel wrong, even in the smallest way. If you want to have a good relationship with them, the smart thing to always do is to always take blame for everything. Okay, so in this case, you would say something like, I'm so sorry that I didn't contact you, after you guys moved in, that it was my fault that I let it drift away, and then they might say something like, oh, well, no, not really, it's also we were busy, or we left, we were out of Australia or out of the U.S. or Canada for a while, and then whatever. But either way, you stick to your guns. You say, no, it's my fault. I'm sorry, and I'm really glad you came, and enjoy, this and that. So take responsibility for any kind of damage in the relationship. And this also works if you had a situation where maybe you had a disagreement, and afterwards you want to fix it up. You want to get back, in touch with them. That's the way to do it. So you meet them face to face. You take responsibility for anything that went wrong, and then you just don't say anything. Let them talk, and they'll start to talk, and you'll be surprised what happens when you do this. They'll start to say, they might even immediately know what you want. They might say, well, I know that you're looking for Chinese clients. And I have a brother or relative or friend, or I know somebody who's looking for a house. They'll recognize that you're being quite skillful in Chinese business. What do you call it? I don't know, just the way of doing business in China. And they'll say they'll appreciate it, because they know that if they recommend somebody to you, they only want to recommend to somebody who understands Chinese business, right? Otherwise, it's quite negative for them, right? So they'll see that, hey, this guy, this woman, she knows, she understands Chinese people. I can recommend somebody to her. And the thing you don't want to do is you don't want to do a sales pitch. You don't want to say, hey, I have 14 listings, and unless they start asking about it. But if you say something like, what I would say. And you might want to take notes on this one. I would say, instead of asking them and say, hey, do you know anybody, or do you have any friends that are moving to, wherever you are? Can you recommend them? Recommend me? Can you introduce me? I would say something like this. I'd say, I really enjoyed helping you. And, or if you haven't helped the Chinese, you might say, I'm very interested in Chinese culture. I'm interested in, I can see there's a lot of Chinese people coming here, and I really want to help, and I'm studying about Chinese culture. I'm very interested. And, if you could give me some ideas about what you would recommend that would help me to target, or to find Chinese people that I can help, any kind of advice you have, I would really appreciate it. Like anything that, how would you start? How would you look at it if you were me? You were a real estate agent here, you had a bunch of great listings, and you wanted to increase your Chinese network, and so how would you do that? And you'll be surprised if you take that attitude where you're asking them as like they're like your advisor, and you're in a sense, in Confucianism, there's always a teacher and there's a student relationship, right? There's always in Chinese culture, there's always a person above and below, and not in the bad sense. That's just the relationship of in any situation, and it can change, right? It changes every situation you move to. It's not like one person's permanently above another. But in this situation, you're saying, "Hey, I'm your student," basically. Do you have any ideas, right? And they'll say, you'll be amazed. Like one thing you can ask them that I think is very smart is to say, do you go to any Chinese business associations in this area? Like I know I'm from Southern California, so in Southern California there's a lot of Chinese business associations, and very few non-Chinese attendees. But most of them are completely open, right? So I would ask, is there any business groups like the Kiwanis Club or the Toastmasters? There's also Chinese groups, and they're great to get involved with. So I would ask any Chinese person I meet that I get friendly with, or in this situation where you're talking to somebody sitting down, say, hey, what are the Chinese business associations in this area? Where do they meet? Can I join? Do you know anybody there? Could you introduce me to anybody? And then if you get an introduction, then it's a very nice way to start instead of just coming in. In China, there's always introductions are really important. So if you can get an introduction, if you can't, just go. Don't get me wrong. But if you have somebody in front of you and they're telling you that they're belonging to something, say, would you mind if I went with you? Or do you know anybody there you can introduce me to? Or when's the next meeting? And then go ahead and move on from there. So that would be a great way if you had a Chinese friend, a Chinese colleague, or you had an ex-Chinese client. That'd be a great way just to network through that. And it also works if there's any other way that you meet somebody. You can take that kind of attitude. How would I start? I am always amazed if I ask Chinese people for help. I'm always amazed how much help I get and how accurate it is. Don't underestimate the value. I don't know everything. That's the thing. I'm not this perfect person that knows all about Chinese culture. That's it's Chinese people that's helping me. I'm always interacting. I'm helping people, and they're helping me, and that's why we have a good relationship, right? So don't be afraid just to let yourself, open yourself up. Let them know what you're looking for, and it's very acceptable. You'll be amazed. You will be amazed. I tell you this right now. You'll be amazed by Chinese people when you take this attitude. Okay, and the next thing is WeChat. I don't know how much, if everybody listening now, or listening in the future when we do the replay, has a smartphone, but I'm guessing a very high percentage. The best way to contact with Chinese people, without a doubt, there's just no question about it right now in 2013, is an application called WeChat. So if you go to your smartphone, Android or iPhone, or probably BlackBerry too, look for WeChat app and install that. It is basically like WhatsApp. If you haven't used it, it's somewhat like, there's a timeline that's something like a Facebook timeline. You have pictures and descriptions, and you have contacts, and you can chat with them. You can chat with them typing, or you can chat with them speaking like a walkie-talkie. You press the button and you say, "Hey, how are you?" And the person will say, "Oh, I'm out having dinner." And you can send very short verbal audio messages back and forth. It's a fantastic software. So either way, WeChat is great. WeChat is exploding in China. I don't know the exact numbers. I often go to the headquarters in Shanghai. It's not the main headquarters. Our main headquarters down in Shenzhen, but I often go there for training, and I know a lot of people at the company, and they're rolling out more and more things. This company is not going to be an application that you're going to install and not use in the future. This is a really solid one. It's backed by China's biggest internet company, Tencent, Tengsuan, and they are putting all their guns on this. They're taking all their old social media, and they're making the same password and username. So they're really they're driving users to WeChat, and people are just loving it. So it's exploding in Asia. It's actually exploding at Taiwan, exploding Singapore. Was it Indonesia, Thailand? It's actually got a lot of users in the U.S. already. So I would highly recommend, if you're going to target Chinese people, as clients, if you want to make Chinese friends, if you want to make any kind of connection to the Chinese community, the number one tool that you want is WeChat on your cell phone. And so for example, when you meet this person, in the last example where you met somebody face to face, the first thing you want to do is, hey, do you have WeChat? Let me get you on there. Even if you're sitting there face to face, add them on WeChat, and you'll see their timeline. The timeline will come up, and this is the best way to talk, because you can see what their personality is. If their picture is all next to Ferraris and Lamborghinis, then you know, right? You know where they're coming from. If the guy's picture is all puppies and flowers, you know what he's thinking, right? If somebody else, a lot of my friends, they do a lot of traveling, so they'll have their trips in there, and they'll have very extensive diaries. These days, Chinese are loving to write diaries, so they'll have like an online diary that they post on WeChat, and describing their travels, and it's always a bit poetic. Often, they write like poetry kind of thing, and so when you see that kind of person, you can start to feel what kind of human being it is, and you'll be able to have a much better connection. So that's the huge advantage of WeChat. There's a lot of other advantages, and we're going to talk about this application a lot, because it's not just about the application, it's about how to connect to the community and how to stay connected, which is invaluable. Because what happens with most agents and people doing business with Chinese is they get a connection and then they lose it, right? Because they're not able to keep it going. And in Asian culture, in Chinese culture, really long-term is where it's at. So you need something that kind of ties you to that client, and that's what this particular application does. If anything changes, we'll keep you updated, but right now there's just no question. You don't need a lot of things. It's not complicated. There's an English version, so if you install WeChat when you finish this webinar, I highly recommend that. And you can add me too. If you go to paulsadlo.com, scroll down to the bottom, there's a QR code. QR code is that kind of squiggly, you'll see it on the bottom right. It's like a barcode for food kind of thing. So see that barcode, and then you can just add me by QR code, and you'll figure it out just using the application. Okay, so how to find Chinese clients? Well, this is another offline method that you can use. One thing we're going to talk a lot about is the needs of the Chinese clients. They're very, very different. And this is one of the things that is the barrier between you and them, is that you can't, without understanding what people need, even if you meet them, you can't solve their problems. So, for example, getting a Chinese client is not really the goal. The goal is to be ready for the Chinese client, so when the Chinese client comes, you have the solution that they need, right? You understand where they're coming from, and you have the solution all set up. And when you do this, when you go, when you set up a team, when you do everything right, you're not just looking for one client. You're building a career. You're building a career, and you're building a massive network that is way, way, way more powerful than you think, and actually also fantastic as far as friendships, and interesting, because you learn so much when you deal with other cultures, and especially Chinese culture. There's a lot to learn. You will not be bored, trust me. Okay, so what this picture is we're going to talk a lot about it in the product, but you want to build, well, first the thing, you want to understand your Chinese client, which we don't really have time to get into too much here, but you want to understand what are their needs. Why do they do things? Why are they investing overseas? That's one thing to always remember, is a lot of the Chinese clients, not all of them, some of them are living wherever you are, Australia, Canada, the US, UK, New Zealand, Singapore. They're already there, but there's a lot of the Chinese clients are coming over, right? So they're moving from one country to another country. So they have a completely different set of needs that someone that lives already in an area has, right? So you want to build a team. You want to build a team of people because you can't solve everyone's problems, right? You need people to help you. So what I would recommend is to search on Google something like whatever city you are in right now. Okay, so let's say it's Sydney. So you search Sydney. You can search different ways. I would say something like Sydney Chinese immigration lawyer, right? Sydney Chinese immigration lawyer, and then you'll come up with the results, and then look down the results. You might say Sydney bilingual Mandarin immigration lawyer. That's another thing you can search. Another thing you can search is, and I'll give you a replay of this webinar. I'll put this online so that you can see this again. So don't worry too much about taking notes right now. Just focus on what we're talking about. But so you might say, just try different search terms. The other thing you want to search for is, besides lawyer, immigration, you might want to search separately for lawyer, Chinese lawyer, Mandarin speaking lawyer for your area. So put in whatever city, Sydney, Mandarin speaking lawyer. You want to search for accountants. So you might say bilingual Mandarin accountant, Sydney. So you want to search for basically three types. You want to search for lawyers and immigration lawyers, accountants, right? Because the accountants are key. You definitely want to you want to know these two people work in tandem. So they're going to help your client or your client's friends, because remember, the one client you have is a member of a larger community, right? So they're going to want to, just like me in Shanghai, I kind of want to know a lot of different people so that when I meet someone, I can help them, I can introduce somebody to them, or I can provide some value. They want to know what's going on in the Chinese community. So even if they've already settled, they also want to have a network that can help their friends, right? So you want let's see, tax attorneys, accountants, lawyers, consultants. So Chinese, you can search Chinese consultant. That one's a little farther off, might not be useful, but it's worth a Google search for sure. Then what you want to do is you want to set up a meeting with them, or a phone call if it's far away. If you're in an area where there aren't many Chinese people, then you probably want to do a Skype call or something. Most Chinese actually have Skype, but also, like I said, WeChat. WeChat is a great way to contact even lawyers. Most lawyers will have WeChat actually these days. So it's not a great way in the sense that you can't have a long conversation with WeChat. It's a back and forth after you know them is the best way. But you can try whatever. But you want to get in touch. Hopefully, best is face to face, and have a meeting. Set up a meeting, and just say hi. Introduce yourself. Don't make a big sales pitch. Don't make a pushy. Don't tell them to introduce their clients to you, and you have the. Here's a common mistake: is that people will meet Chinese people, and all they can talk about is their listings. I have the most beautiful houses in Maui. I have the most gorgeous places in New York, right next to Central Park. We have exclusive, island off of, the Gold Coast. We have the best this, and they're talking about their listings, right? But the Chinese client, the listing, of course it's important. Of course the house, and they're going to be, they're going to pick the smartest thing in the end. But they have a lot of other needs that are more important first. They're probably going to have some kind of immigration questions. They'll have tax questions, because tax is completely different for real estate in China. So they just point blank won't understand the tax system if they're coming from mainland China, and they'll need a lot of education. And if you try to do that yourself, I mean, if you're not an attorney, you might even be in legal trouble. So you want to build your team. And the reason why you want to build your team well is because if you have a good client and you get a good introduction, a referral, and then you introduce the person to a lawyer, and if you don't trust the lawyer in a sense that you don't have a good relationship with them, they could possibly introduce that person to somebody else, right? So you might lose that client. That's possible. So you want to show that you understand, you want to show that you care, and you want to find people you trust and people that you click with, people you get along with. And I would make it a short meeting. I wouldn't it'd take a very short period of time. I would say something like, I'm focusing on Chinese clients. I have some Chinese clients already, or I don't have, but I'm now studying, and I have boots on the ground in China. So we were expecting to have some wealthy Chinese clients. So I wanted to build a team, and I wanted to know if this would be something, how do you structure these kind of things? And then they'll tell you, they'll say, well, if you have anybody, please introduce me. I'll be glad to help them, or whatever. You'll hear what their situation is. But that's what you want to do. You want to build a team, and you don't want to brag about yourself, how great your listings are. You might actually that's another discussion, but you want to build a team. That's a key thing. Another big thing is things you want to prepare. Okay, so that before I think a lot of agents right now, they can see the wave of Chinese buyers. They know that it's there's a huge opportunity here, right? So they're just rushing around trying to get something done, trying to get some Chinese clients. And a lot of times what they're doing is people are renting space in events here in China. They're putting up ads everywhere. They're posting on different websites online, and they're just blanketing spending money in a black box. I don't recommend that. I don't recommend that at all. I recommend being very careful, taking it step by step, learning the situation, and knowing what works, just like you'd do back home, right? China is no mystery. You just have to study, and it will come together. And if my experience is any guide, the people that actually care and try and really try to understand Chinese people and try to help and have set up systems in advance, I mean, there's no competition. There's nobody else doing this. People are putting up ads. They're spending a ton of money in China to get a client, you don't even call it a client. They get an email from some person, and they have no idea how to establish a relationship with them. They have no idea what they're looking for. They have no idea what to say in the emails. And so naturally, those leads are basically useless, right? So they don't turn into a client, right? There's a lot of things you got to know to take it to the next step. But again, it's very manageable. It's just step by step, and you'll see that you can build a very, very powerful business. And I've helped a lot of people to do it. So I'm confident that I can do it with you. Okay, so here's this actually isn't a Chinese school, but I was just looking for pictures here of education. So one thing you might want to do to start now is you might want to kind of make a list of all the schools in your area. Which schools and which districts. If you're very familiar with your area, you don't have to do this. But if you don't know, you might want to just check it out. Just kind of do some research. Which schools are in which areas, they accept what kind of students, and how everything works with the education. And anything you can learn about education can easily turn into a $1 million house. Because when you talk to a Chinese person, a lot of the time, I would say, I don't know the exact stats, I don't think anybody knows the exact stats, but I would say 60% at least of Chinese investors that are buying overseas, the purpose is so that their children get an education overseas. So if you know, naturally, what schools are there, what's good and bad, if you happen to know any teachers, that's fantastic. If you know anybody you can introduce, that's great. Any kind of help that you can give them. again, this is education, so it's completely different than real estate. So it's a little bit out there, and I wouldn't get a master's in education. I would just go ahead and figure out what's going on in my area. If you want to take it farther, you might want to talk to Chinese and ask them, what schools do Chinese like in this area? Well, where does everybody go? Where is the best place? Why? Why would people go there? And find out what people in the Chinese community think, because the Chinese community's opinion about education is often different than what you would expect. So you want to find out how and why. And again, this is a long-term process. But just keep in mind that if you understand education in your area, you have a huge advantage. You have a massive advantage. So if you have a friend who's a teacher, if your wife or husband is a teacher, that's fantastic. Any kind of your friend, and just talk about things, what's going on, what advantages to this and that. You'll be the go-to person that will have the information that the family wants and the family needs. And there's no limit to the age. Okay, it could be anywhere from kindergarten all the way up to a PhD level. So anything related to education can always be helpful, because the ages of the students, the average age of a Chinese who buys overseas for the child, I posted on our Facebook page. If you go to facebook.com/ChinaCashBuyers, go check out our Facebook page and like it if you like it, and feel free to please leave comments and add links. Don't do any sales on there. We're all studying about how to find Chinese buyers here. So if you don't put your ads on there, you're not going to find any clients on there. This is for study. But please ask questions. If you're not sure about something, post a link and ask about it. That's fine. But on I think yesterday's post or the day before, I wrote that the average father of a wealthy family is about 43, the average mother is about 42, and the average child is 14. So if you think of that as kind of the baseline, that's pretty common, right? And that was for actually very wealthy families of $150 million plus. But I think that's pretty close, regardless of the amount. Millionaires, 150, or billionaires, or whatever, anywhere in the middle. That's pretty close. Fairly young families. So let's see. All right, so find out as much as you can about education, store it in your mind, and make yourself a Excel sheet so that you can be somebody who at least knows something, right? At least knows something, What I like to do too is, if I'm in an area, or I recommend a client to take pictures, go take your own pictures of the school or any information you can find, or that's always very, very helpful. Unique content, right? Okay, so you don't want to you don't want to miss this opportunity. You want to be ready. You want to be ready, and the way to get ready is to study, right? And also experience, right? So meeting more Chinese buyers, talking to more Chinese buyers, helping more Chinese buyers, and developing a closer relationship with more Chinese people and a network of Chinese people will be massively to your advantage. And Chinese people, they're in my experience, very tight knit, and when you get in the community, you just get all kinds of opportunities. I had a funny situation yesterday. I was on a TV show. I was on a Chinese TV show because of one of my Chinese friends called me and said, "Hey, would you like to be on the show?" And I went on this show. So anyway, it was just a good time. It was a fun time. But Chinese people are going to be investing in your area. They're going to be building a community in your area. They're going to be opening restaurants. They're going to be opening businesses. They're going to be doing trade back and forth. There's just a lot of different things that are going to be happening that happen when you build yourself a network of wealthy Chinese buyers. So the people that don't do this, the people that aren't ready, I think if you look at you look at any Chinatown, used to not be Chinatown, right? It slowly became, and if you look at the owners of the businesses in that area, they're all gone now, right? When the Chinese community comes in, it's the people that blend in, that mix in, that network and provide value are the ones that are still there, right? So if you're in there and you have a good relationship, you'll be that person that will still be standing, and you'll be that useful person that has the local knowledge and also cares about Chinese people and can help Chinese people. And then they also in turn are grateful to repay the favor. So I want to thank you for watching, and I hope that we'll have a video coming up in a couple days, which will be explaining all the different, very specific into what the product covers, what it doesn't cover, and it will have we'll explain how to purchase the product or how to join. We will have a series of online videos which you can watch and you can study in your home or your iPhone or iPad, in your office, whatever. It's available online. So we'll have a video series, and we'll also have a monthly membership where a referral club of people interested in the Chinese market, most up-to-date information. We'll have weekly webinars where you can actually ask questions and talk to me directly. So that's coming up. So a video series and also a monthly referral club. So any referrals that come in will go into our referral club, and also we're going to teach you in detail, based on your situation, how to get referrals and how to grow your business day by day as things move forward. So we can take it from the very beginning, which I think a lot of people are starting from the very beginning. It's their first time dealing with Chinese or quite new of dealing with Chinese clients. We can take you from that level all the way up to where you're the go-to guy, where you deal with wealthy people all the time. People ask you for advice. You have a fantastic network. People will always come to you for questions. They'll know that you're the person that knows, and they'll refer people to you because they know you're the guy that can help. That's a situation I'm in, and that's the situation some of my clients are in. So, and obviously it requires the steps are easy, but they require work. So we were looking for people that are interested in improving themselves, and you want to build this thing, and you're willing to put in a little elbow grease. It's very simple. The steps are very simple, but they require implementation. They require you to actually go and do it, right? So if you're interested, I'm sure that's not a problem. The motivation is like deep, and it's like, please tell me what I do. I just want to go do it. So if you're in that boat, then I'm definitely not talking to you. So that's great stuff. So thank you very much for attending, and I will cut off the webinar now. Thank you very much, and I hope everybody has a good day. Okay, thanks so much. See you next time.